I can't hear anybody now.
That's because we all went on mute, Laurie, apart from you.
I can see your mouth moving. So.
Okay, well, we'll start then. Right, so welcome everybody to Friends of Tracking. Oh yeah, I was going to tweet this with our hashtag. Welcome everybody to Friends of Tracking, and we're going to look today a little bit about open resources, things that you need to get starting if you're interested in doing football data science or data analytics. And first, I'm just going to introduce the guys who are here with me today. Let me go stop the screen share and we'll go over to this panel view here. You can put your microphone on now if you want, Suds. The guys I've got with me today, well, you met 3 of them last week, but we've also got Laurie with us, and we've also got Totti, who's our sketch artist, who's going to be live on today. So I'll start with if Totti would like to do a little introduction of herself and say hello and who you are and how you got involved with this project.
Well, hello. Well, my real name is Virginia Armas, and well, you're going to see me in my sketches as Sketcher Live, as the name you can see here in the video. And well, I'm currently working as a Scrum Master. I'm a computer engineer, but on my free time as a hobby, I like to do sketches. And well, I did different collaborations with a lot of people, and right now I'm really glad to do this collaboration with Friends of Tracking, doing this sketch live recording like you're going to see today. You're going to see me doing a lot of drawings here. So well, enjoy it, and afterwards you're going to see the result, and we're going to share on the social media. So thank you and welcome everyone.
Great, thank you very much. It's really nice. I mean, they're beautiful drawings that you've done. And you did one first, I saw it when you did one at this Barcelona conference. Now I've got it as my headline on my Twitter feed as well. They're really beautiful things. So before we start going, because we want to sort of have this informal, all right, we have to have Laurie. Okay, Laurie, you're going to say a few words about yourself.
Hi, yes, my name's Laurie Shaw. I'm a research associate and data scientist at the Sports Analytics Lab in the Statistics Department at Harvard University. And so a lot of the research that we do involves the use of tracking data to gain insights or to develop practical applications for team sports. And we collaborate with a lot of the people who are on this stream right now.
Cool. Okay, and then what I thought I'd do next is we just have a little talk about what we've done this week. So I'll start with you, Fran. What have you been up to? This week?
Well, I think main thing we've done, like together with you, actually, and with Ed being as a master student that we have in Hammarby now, it's been we have a nice talk with defenders of EcoFray, the second team that we have in Hammarby, and we were just showing them some situations that were from the last season in Allsvenskan to discuss together with them with using tracking data and the visualizations that we mainly use. And apart from that, that was like the main thing, but then just keeping the developing of tools that we're using every day in the club. Well, now we're with a scouting tool that we're developing, so pretty much coding.
Yeah. Cool. I think one I saw just in the text, we had this text. I mean, one of the less glamorous things you have to do is you have to go and measure the pitch and things like that as well. It's not all just glamorous talking to players and developing analytics. You also have to do these very practical things.
Exactly. I have to go to the field where the women's team play and just measure what's the distance between this video camera and the sideline. It's going to be amazing tomorrow. Yeah. Hope it's not raining, but.
Okay, Suds, have you had to measure any pitches this week?
Not physically. I've been busy measuring just the rate of change of our transitions. So We have a pretty comprehensive mesocycle report to give to our coach on Monday. Since he started actually being our head coach the middle of last season. So we want to just make some comparisons between the middle of last season and then also all of the season so far. So we've been doing some work around transitions, especially around just understanding what contributes to us being able to actually counterattack quickly or not. And then on top of that, been working with the sports scientists in trying to understand if there actually exists any sort of transient fatigue after a intense moment, which we're finding that there might not actually be fatigue. So fatigue is a multifactorial problem.
That's interesting.
No.
Well, apart from also recording an 1.5 hour long video on stats bomb data at R, which you can maybe say something about.
Sure, yeah. So there's a video up in the YouTube channel around getting started with downloading the StatsBomb open data onto your local machine and playing around with it, being able to extract all of the information you'd like out of event data. Sorry for the audio. If it's a bit bad, I'm going to figure out how to get a better microphone. But the plan is to follow up with this in terms of building a Shiny application on top of StatsBomb data to be able to visualize things in a more interactive fashion.
Cool, that's great. Okay, lastly, I'll go over to you, Pascal, and you just managed to get here just in time.
Yes, hopefully you can hear me as well.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I did not spend that much time than you guys for this Friends of Tracking Data initiative. I hope I'll find more time within the next weeks. We get some projects, some data related projects in terms of the Euros, but since they're postponed for a year now, we got way more time with this. And I'd say I spent most of the time this week for hackathon stuff. We get 2 months now. So the hackathon started 2 months ago. And this week is the deadline for one of 3 parts of evaluation. All the teams has to pitch their ideas, how they plan to solve the project. And I'm one of the mentors, got to evaluate this. And I've seen very, very cool approaches from the guys. And this is very exciting. And one highlight of the week as well. This morning, I summarized one of Laurie's papers, or actually that one paper that he presented at the Barcelona conference, because we got a program on our webpage where we translate scientific papers to a simple coach language. And we chose Laurie's paper this time. Hope that's fine for you, Laurie.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, I want to see it.
Yeah. It's in German. It's in German then, unfortunately. But
oh, you've written it. Okay, yeah, it's written in German. Yeah. Great. No, that's fantastic. So what I'll do now is I'll go into. Well, if the other guys, you can put yourselves on mute. I'm going to go in and do this presentation. I'll share my screen, and some of you will want to know what we've said that we're going to invite you into the Zoom chat after this. So the idea here is I'm going to do this presentation now, then I'll send out a link so that you can all get into the Zoom chat. And well, we're going to go into the group rooms. I'm not sure if it's going to work, but we're going to try and see if we can go into group rooms and look at us as individuals and have a little chat in there. I'm a bit worried because Pascal's picture seems to be up on the, so if I put that, oh, the host, it says the host spotlighted for everybody, so it knows. It was just showing me you, Pascal. Okay, there we go. Right, great. So I put up one video during this week telling you a little bit about how you can get started in Python, but this is just going to be a short presentation going through, well, what are the open resources if you want to get started in football data science? I've broken it down into code, data, and community. So first of all, what coding, what programming tools you need, what sort of data you can actually get your hands on, and then also just a little bit at the end there about how the community works and where you can sort of talk to others about your work. So start here with code. And in my video, I'm quite clear about this, is really what you need to get your hands on first is Anaconda. And what you can download Anaconda. It's a free package. And I suggest that you get Python 3.7 unless you've got any other reason to get something. But Python's great to have. And Anaconda also has RStudio built into it. And so basically you get everything you need. And you can also make Python notebooks, so Jupyter notebooks as well, doing this thing. So the first thing you need to do is download Python and through Anaconda, and that you can do. Have a look at the video if you want some more information how to do that, but it's very simple. You just go into anaconda.com, click on download and install it on your computer. That's all there is to it. Then what's Anaconda got? Well, Anaconda's got Jupyter notebooks I mentioned. It's got what I primarily use myself is Spider, which is a sort of interactive programming tool. So you can write your code, you can see what happens as your code is executed, and you can also look at the data inside your program, so you can interact with it. And so I give a few examples about how, and I'm going to do all the examples in mine part of the course with using the Spider environment. What Suds used in his talk was RStudio. I'm not sure if he did it through Anaconda, but he had RStudio, and it's a very similar environment. It's basically the same idea. You have a package of libraries in the background. You have your coding area. You can look inside the data and so on. So it's pretty much interchangeable. If you want to learn programming in R or programming in Python, you choose one of those two. I think when we talked last week, I was very pro Python, and maybe I'm just a bit biased because that's what I've used the most of. It then turns out that Suds does almost everything in R. So I think there's probably that fight is not won in any way at all, which one you should learn. So a quick look inside Spider. This is a screenshot showing you how it's broken down. This is where you write in your code. This is, for example, an expected goals model I'm working on for a future lecture. This is the output is down here. Then up here, you have your environments with your variables, and you can go in and you can look inside your variables. And this makes it, I think, a lot easier to sort of understand what you're doing as you write your programs and so on. Then I suggested, it came up last week, there were lots of questions about, like, how do I learn data science? What's a good course to learn data science? And the one I recommend is Data 8. It's created by two Berkeley professors, Annie Adhikari and John De Niro. And why I think I recommend it is that it really tries to combine three important things. It's not just about programming. It combines statistical understanding, so understanding statistics properly. It combines modeling, how you take the real world and you translate it into a mathematical problem. And it combines programming in Python at the same time. And so it's quite rigorous in the sense that it tells you about different statistical distributions, about linear regression. It explains the background to those things. And it gives lots of interesting examples. No football examples in this one, but lots of interesting examples. And they use Python code inside Jupyter notebooks. So if you've got Anaconda, you can actually run the Jupyter notebooks as you go along. So the web page for this is, there is a Data 8 web page as well. But the thing that I have in mind is this thing called inferentialthinking.com is the actual web page for the book. Here was one of the examples. They took the count of words in Huckleberry Finn as a very simple starting example of how you can do data science. So that's my personal choice of a recommended course for data science. Then, well, what if you just want to learn through football examples? Now that's definitely possible. The one I recommend for starting with Python is FC Python. It's created by a guy called Jamie, who has a background in performance analysis. I had a little bit of contact with him last week. He's on Twitter at FC Python. And again, that's statistics and programming Python at the same time. But there is a bit less rigor than the Data 8 course, I think, in this. It's more about getting going as soon as possible. And it uses Python code, which you should, I think, copy into Spider. So this is my... You're going to find this if you follow my part of the course, is that my mode of operation is basically to find some interesting code, copy it into Spider, find out how it works and how I can use it. And I think that's a lot of the ethos around development in data science. So there's some examples there where he makes a pitch heat map, he makes some sort of points visualization of the Premier League and so on. So some nice examples of how to use Python. If you're more into R, then there is actually FCR stats, and it has a lot of the similar code to FC Python. I was suspicious that these were the same person, but it turns out they're different people, but they are developing similar ideas. The one FCR stats has some quite nice things for particularly tailored to StatsBomb. So, and also some for sports code as well, if you're already an analyst. So you can check out that. And then there's also a package called Soccermatics. So if I like this one, of course, I'm a bit biased. So this was actually a guy called Joe Gallagher who he wrote to me and said, is it okay if I put up a GitHub package called Soccermatics where I implement a lot of the things that are in your book? And I was like, well, yeah, of course, that's just brilliant. And so, though he did it in R, not in Python, but apart from that, it's just brilliant. So it has passing networks down there. It has the shot maps. It has heat maps of different passes, even some sort of formation stuff, which Laurie will be very interested in seeing. So there's some really nice stuff where he's taken various things I did in Soccermatics and implemented them in R. So that's a really good resource. There's even a link to some useful tracking data that you can get started with there. There's lots of other of these, loads and loads and loads of them, but those are the ones that I bring up just now. Data and community. So there's basically three big data providers for event data in this field. They are StatsBomb, Scout, and Opta. And they both contribute in different ways to the data and community. StatsBomb have been really big on saying that they've released their data. And I think I suggest this in the first video as well. I think one of the first things you should do is you should download their data. It's available on GitHub. And there's some basic stuff about working with it in R. And you can download this and really get started. There's enough data there to do some really interesting stuff and do some really interesting analyses. Then a little less well known is the Scout data. This actually was published in a scientific article late last year where the Scout researchers published a little bit of their own analysis of the data, and they made data available for 5 leagues, for the Premier League, La Liga, Bundesliga, I think of probably Serie A. I don't know if it was the French league was the 5th one, but they made data available for 5 big leagues, and that's enough to, for example, fit expected goals models on, to really do some quite nice analysis on your favorite teams. I wanted to go back to this one thing. It's one thing I love about the StatsBomb thing is that they have quite a lot of women's football. So there's the two major tournaments they have. They have the Women's World Cup and they have the Men's World Cup. So those are matches that lots of us have seen. So it's quite nice to do analysis on that. Then finally, Opta. Opta haven't been particularly good in sharing data. What they have been good at, though, is through the Opta Pro Analytics Forum. And I think someone said last week that so it's like a competition. It's sort of a competition, but a chance to analyze some data. So you send in an idea of an analysis you'd like to do, and then they provide you with data to do that analysis. And then you go to London in February and you present your analysis. And I think someone said last week that almost every winner of this competition and quite a few runners up have ended up working for a club. So I found this Bill Spearman quote that the Opta Analytics Forum is a fantastic opportunity for hobbyists and academics and professionals to connect and share their ideas. It's also an excellent chance for you to actually get involved and end up working for a club one day. So Opta are very good at that end of things. And then the last thing we're going to talk about, I just got this confirmed today, that we're in combination with, or in cooperation with Allsvenskan, the Swedish league, and Signality, who do the data tracking. We're going to have tracking data available. We're already beginning to be able to, hopefully next week, release the Hammarby matches that were played, our home matches from last season. So that will be 15 matches. And then in the near future, we should be able to release more matches from Allsvenskan. So stay tuned, and we'll tell you more about that. And that was the last thing I was going to, I didn't quite get around to. I was going to put a list of all of the great Twitter accounts there are on football analytics. That was something that was, for me, just totally amazing to come into football analytics and see all the people who are on Twitter working on these various things, and just to see how things have developed for them as well in different ways. So there's lots of people working on Twitter. I won't name drop a load of them. Maybe if you're watching, you can name drop them in the comment section of this feed. Name drop yourself or name drop other people who you can follow if you're interested in Twitter, in football analytics. There's just so many people there who do interesting things. A lot of them have spent a lot of time this week sending me, sorry if I haven't answered all of your direct messages, but I've had lots of messages with different analysis, which is just wonderful. I think it's just amazing with the things you can see on Twitter. And that, I think, is what I wanted to say about the resources that are available. I think what I'll do is I'll just before we go, I try and set up this group thing. I'll put all the guys in here again. And if you would like to say anything about resources which I might have forgotten. Maybe I'll put you on the spot, Laurie, first, so the others can think about it, because you've probably spent a lot more time looking for public resources than others. Yeah,
I mean, certainly I kind of got into sports analytics when I started writing my own blog 4 or 5 years ago. And, it was always intended to be a blog about data and analytics in football. And, I was amazed at just how much data you can find Googling around online. I think one of the first data sets that I found was all the English football results going back to 1890.
Yeah, I've downloaded that one too.
And there's really interesting things you can do even just with score lines. Like you can look at things like home advantage and how that's varied over time. And then from there, I think when I started out, there wasn't very much event data, and there's certainly no tracking data that was publicly available. But what you could do is scrape an enormous amount of data. And that's a skill that I developed entirely through writing blog posts, learning how to sort of go to a web page that I knew was rich in data and then try to figure out how to sort of extract it all and convert it into a format that you could do interesting analyses with. And there's great resources out there for if you wanted to do analyses of team attendances. There are web pages you can do that. Things like Transfermarkt and Who Scored are great as well. If you want to do sort of analytics with sort of more refined statistics rather than the raw data. So for example, if you want expected goals for Premier League matches going back several years, then websites like Understat have all that kind of stuff. And so it's just a process of learning how to extract all of that data. And I think in some ways, it's a great stepping stone for getting into, for learning about analytics, learning about, how to develop the tools and how to present work and sharing your work online. And that can often lead to, collaborations with people that have access to larger data sets. And that's very much what happened to me. So I think this is kind of a vast amount of data out there that's not tracking data and it's not event data, but it's still very interesting and useful and can be used, and as hasn't by any means been completely mined for all its interesting information.
Cool. Yeah. Does anyone else want to come in on the public data type of question?
It's not a public data source, but it's in line with Who Scored. There's also Squawka and SofaScore. And what I find is really cool about these sites is one of the first projects that you can think of doing with these sites is they give you kind of their own 1 out of 10 rating for a player. But if you scrape the site properly and look under the HTML, you can see what were the raw individual data points that went into the player index. So it's a really great way to kind of
might be trying to cut you off now, like
it's a great
I think
way
we're going
to...
a little bit far down the scraping route, if you don't mind.
Okay, fair. But it's a very good project to start with, to try to understand how do you build your own player index model with the sort of information that you might be able to find.
Yeah, we discussed this yesterday. Scraping is I think it's not illegal. There's various different types of cases here, but I think it's not illegal in the European Union to download available information online in this way.
So actually maybe I'll follow up in another video or in a pre-recorded video, but I do believe for WhoScored and also for SofaScore, if you do send them an email telling them that you would like to use their data for educational purposes or for learning purposes, as long as they respond back to you, most of the time they will say, okay. So I do believe that if you do let them know that, hey, I would like to use this data set for learning about sports data science, be a much more acceptable route to go.
Good. That's very nice to hear. Good.
Pascal? I got something to add. You missed one important data source. For example, the Bundesliga, or especially the Bundesliga, they have their own event data catalog. And what may be cool for you guys, that there are a lot of data sets available, makes our life, or especially for us at the federation level, a lot harder, because we got players in La Liga, we got players in English Premier League, we got players in Bundesliga, we got a different event data provider than the Bundesliga. And you can imagine those event data as catalogs defining every single thing in a football match, like a pass, a tackle, a shot. And those definitions differ from provider to provider, and that makes it, from our perspective, uncomparable. So I cannot really, or we are really struggling in comparing our national team data with Bundesliga data. This is maybe the other side of that thing.
Cool. Okay, yeah, that's very good. I think we should send, please, if you, Pascal, could put the link out on maybe on the YouTube feed or something like that. That would be really good. And if everyone, well, we're going to be a bit active now, but if everyone could put out the links onto the YouTube feed as we go along, then everyone can find those data things, and I'll try and tweet them out later too.